Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Computer Society. Andrew Johnson is ACS's Chief Executive Officer with a focus on workforce planning and development solutions. He has 13 plus years senior management experience, consulting to individual businesses on the skill needs within their organisation, supporting the identification of any skill gaps or shortages with current staffing arrangements, and strategy development to address future skill requirements.
Welcome everyone to the afternoon sessions for the CeBIT plenary. It's my delight to be here this afternoon. We've got some really interesting sessions coming up. Once again, I'd like to thank the New South Wales Government, the City of Sydney and IBM for their great support of CeBIT. A couple of housekeeping things if I can. Firstly, just telephones. We've just had afternoon tea. If you can recall just to turn those to silent, that would be greatly appreciated by the speakers. Same format this afternoon, presentation followed by Q&A. Don't forget the app. We're all after data these days and real-time data, so you can do feedback on sessions straight into your app. And for those who tweet, #CeBITAUS. Our first session to kick off is entitled Cognitive Computing Comes of Age by Dr. Joanna Batstone, Vice President and Lab Director, IBM Research and Chief Technology Officer at ANZ. Joanna has held a variety of technical and business leadership roles in IBM, including Global Technology Services Europe, worldwide strategy responsibility for distributed computing research in USA, managing the research relationship with IBM Software Group's application integration and middleware teams, and solutions development in IBM's healthcare and life sciences. Joanna has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Physics and a PhD in Physics from the University of Bristol, postdoctoral work at AT&T Bell Laboratories in New Jersey, and a lectureship in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering at the University of Liverpool. Please welcome Dr. Joanna Batstone to the stage.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. We often speak of big data, but I'm going to continue the journey we've been on today and talk about how the world of data and analytics becomes the world of cognitive computing, and to give you some real examples of client work that we've been doing that demonstrate the story of big data and really why we care about it. Many of the examples that I'm going to use are real-world examples where our ability to understand and interpret big data and drive new insights from those data sets enable us to produce real-world solutions that really make a difference, not just from a technology perspective, but have real societal impact and value as well. So it's a really nice segue from many of the discussions we heard this morning about just-in-time data analytics, about the work we heard at Qantas, about the customer experience and the journey of transforming data. We're going to look at some of our own examples in different industries and look at how the insights that we drive from data can transform industries for the future. The story of data is not a new story. This first example I'm going to show actually relates back to about 2009. It's actually a project from my own research labs in New York, where we were looking at how do we understand the large amounts of data streams that come off equipment in an intensive care unit. And the project here was very much around understanding, looking for patterns in data that would help us to identify the risk of a baby in the ICU crashing. It's an expression that's used when a baby is at risk and you're not sure what's happening. What are some of the predictive indicators in the data sets that we can study that would give us early insight and hence be able to do early intervention to prevent a baby from crashing in the ICU? And actually, as we looked at integrating blood pressure data, oxygenated blood data, and a variety of other sensors of information that's streaming off the baby in the equipped ICU, we were able, using stream computing at the time, to infer enough information to give us a approximately 24-hour predictive capability to identify babies at risk for sepsis or blood poisoning. So the impact of this, clearly from a society perspective, healthier babies, happier parents, but also tremendous business value benefit for the hospital system and the healthcare industry. Another example that has tremendous societal impact, if we think about integrating data. Many cities around the world experience a monsoon season, or a rainy season, or floods. In Rio de Janeiro, in 2010, they experienced huge, unprecedented flooding. Massive amounts of rain fell, huge landslides, tremendous impact to human life. Over 100 people died in this catastrophe. So could we be better prepared? If we were analyzing the data, could we predict unusual patterns in rainfall? So the city of Rio swore that they would never be unprepared again. And so they've been working with us to integrate data, topographical data, city planning data, evacuation data, as well as meteorological data, so that the city can prepare in the future and be much better equipped to avoid the loss of human life, as well as the loss of damage to property and the city infrastructure. So as we bring these worlds of data together, we can drive new insights about the data. Here's another example, different style of natural disaster. This is Outbreak of Disease. So remember back to last year, this terrible outbreak of Ebola in West Africa. And the doctors and nurses and providers on the ground were really struggling to keep up with the information flow and to be able to respond appropriately in the course of the natural disaster. So this was an example of how can we leverage real-time data, back to Rod Smith's presentation this morning, real-time analytics to pinpoint needed areas for physician support, to identify areas in Sierra Leone where supplies were running short, to identify regions in the city where there were new cases identified. This was an example of bringing real-time data together with researchers on the ground from our labs in Africa, with the government of Sierra Leone, to put together this open SMS initiative that enabled us now to do these topographic heat maps to identify areas of need. Again, real-time data analytics, huge amounts of streaming data from the world of social media, but again, an opportunity to make an impact to society through our ability to transform data at source. So I've talked about big data, and we've talked a lot about big data today, but when we say big data, how big is big? So look at this statistic. 90% of today's data in the world was created in the last 24 months. 90%. Look at the amount of data that is coming from video. Look at the amount of data that is coming from the world of the interconnected world of sensors and actuators. Look at the amount of data that comes from the aircraft industry that we were discussing this morning. Think about our own enterprises for those of us in large companies. We use video almost every day in our day-to-day lives and work. There are tens of millions of cameras around the world. Just imagine how many hours of video come off those cameras. So how can we as humans interpret and understand and analyze all of this data? I'm going to take you through a couple of industry examples here of where the data is coming from. In the oil and gas industry, this is a petroleum refinery rig, 80,000 sensors here. And over the course of this single reservoir of oil, more than 15 petabytes of data in the lifetime of just this one rig. Retail and social media, this is probably the one that we're most familiar with. But even the statistics are amazing. We were just talking about tweeting with CeBIT Australia. 55 million Facebook updates a day, 500 million tweets. How do you interpret the meaning of what people are saying? How do you interpret the understanding of the information that's included in all of those Twitter tweets? If actually you can interpret that data, how can you drive new insights into that data that will help you transform the way you can use that social media data in your enterprise today? We had some discussion earlier today about the Internet of Things. Well, the Internet of Things is about the connected world. Every single device, all of the devices we have in our pockets, all of the devices that we have in our homes, all of the devices at work, all of the sensors around us in smart buildings. Smart appliances will grow from less than 1% of the market today, think of your washing machines and dishwashers and fridges, to more than half of those appliances, smart, intelligent, connected in 2020. Healthcare. We just had a great presentation on healthcare from the Garvan Institute talking about genomics and genomic medicine. Think about each one of us as individuals. Each one of us will generate over 1 million gigabytes of health-related data in their lifetime. Each one of us. Now think about that. That's not just the information when you go to see your physician. That's all of the health-related data. Some of us may be wearing Fitbits that are monitoring our personal health. Some of us may be wearing Apple Watches that enable us to monitor our personal health. Health and wellness applications are exploding. The amount of data each one of us generates, that's equivalent to about 300 million books per person. It's immense. So if all of these examples are generating such massive amounts of data, what do we need to do about it, right? What is the risk of us not understanding and interpreting the insights from these data sets? In the case of medical data, in the genomics example we just heard about, being able to identify opportunities for personalized medical treatment by analyzing the data. If we can make a difference, we truly are saving lives. In the case of the oil and gas industry, and in fact other large industrial manufacturing industries, instrumenting large plant equipment so that we can do effective preventive maintenance can make a huge difference. Can we predict when an outage will happen? Can we then take proactive preventative maintenance action as a result of the insights? Think about the world of finance and insurance. If we can understand and monitor trends and patterns in data, we can truly make a difference in the way that we can provide value to our clients and actually change or even disrupt the way that we engage with our clients and our clients' clients in the future. So we need to understand the data, but it's huge. And so traditional methods of data analytics are running out of steam. And that takes us in the IBM journey to the world of the cognitive era. And you've heard us use the expression, the cognitive era. And just a show of hands around the room, how many of you would know what we mean by the cognitive era? Okay, a few of you. So think about the cognitive era in the context of the world of the programmable system, rules, and the machine that we can program, and the way that the human brain thinks about interpreting data and pattern recognition. So this is our definition of cognitive systems. Cognitive systems have the ability to learn at scale. Think about that large amount of data. We've got to be able to interpret that data at scale. So we need to be able to learn. The systems need to be able to learn. Cognitive systems need to be able to reason, and to reason with purpose. For example, inference of information, identification of entities within a body of text, the ability to infer new insights from the data. Cognitive systems must reason with purpose. And then finally, one of the interesting variants here is truly cognitive systems need to be able to interact with humans naturally. Think about all of those data sets we just looked at. The way that we want to interact with the data, we discussed data scientists earlier, the way that we want to interact with the data is naturally. We want to use natural techniques of engaging with the understanding within the data. We want to be able to interact by voice, by text, by video, by social media data. We want to interact very naturally. And so cognitive systems must learn and reason with humans and for humans and engage in a different style of interaction as a cognitive system. For those of you who have wandered around the demonstration floor here at CeBIT, you'll see lots and lots of robots. So think about the way that we as humans interact with robots. Think about the way the robot is becoming an example of embodied cognition. But the fundamental characteristics of cognitive systems is learning at scale, reason with purpose, and interacting in a natural way with humans. So now let's think about cognitive systems in the context of these industry examples. With genomics, with the Garvan Institute example, huge amounts of genomics data from these sequencing machines, our ability to learn from the body of scientific literature, for example, all of the scientific articles that get published in PubMed, being able to learn from that information, teach our cognitive systems the language of medicine, and now infer new insights on those data sets, to be able to identify new cancer treatment protocols that are now personalized to the individual's genetic profile. It's very hard to do that as a researcher. You really want a system that enables you to synthesize all of the key insights from those data sets and provide you with personalized recommendations for the patient. And cognitive systems enable you to do that. Another example in the oil and gas industry, and an example that we have locally here in Australia with Woodside, is the ability to infer new insights from 30 years worth of engineering data that can now be analyzed with a cognitive system that learns patterns in the data and can teach field engineers new insights on how to manage the equipment in region. Many, many examples in different industries, but fundamentally, the transformation here is around leveraging algorithms to transform industry. It's around leveraging deep learning and machine learning to transform industry. These are not rules-based systems. You cannot program the system to analyze all of the data. You need to teach the system how to learn the patterns that exist within the data. A couple of industries where cognitive technologies are really transforming the world that we're living in today are education and healthcare. I've already made some reference to healthcare, but let me talk a bit about education first. Imagine you're the kindergarten teacher or the first grade teacher with 35 kids in the classroom. Each one of them learns differently. Each one of those kids will learn mathematics differently. Some people learn visually, some people learn by writing things down. What if you as the teacher had the ability to understand the different learning styles within your classroom? Imagine you're at a university. Another good example here in region is work we've been doing with Deakin University. Imagine you're at a university and you're now trying to teach your students new coursework. Working with cognitive systems, we've been developing cognitive tutors, cognitive student advisors, to transform the way that we deliver education to university students. The key point here is that it's personalized. It's personalized to the student's learning style, it's personalized to the student's course curriculum. The systems understand from the way that students interact, again through natural language and text analytics. The students are learning and engaging with a cognitive system that is learning from them. Let's go back to the childhood education example. We've just announced a very exciting partnership with the Sesame Workshop. Some of you may have kids that watch Sesame Street. I know my kids will watch Sesame Street when they were young. Take a look at what we've just announced and what we're planning to do with the Sesame Workshop.
Sometimes the most exciting breakthroughs
start with a simple idea.
Like using the power of media
to reach and teach children.
And making the world work better through innovation and technology.
There is a huge opportunity to transform early childhood education through personalization.
How can we provide the best education at this crucial time?
The best education is one that is unique for every child.
Sesame Street and IBM are working together
to bring personalized learning to kids around the world.
To unlock the potential of every child.
With Sesame Street's decades of experience
and IBM's breakthrough in cognitive computing with Watson,
we can help kids
grow smarter,
stronger,
and kinder.
We will transform the world, and we will do it together.
So pretty exciting. And why is early childhood education so important? It's because the human brain continues to change and to transform and to rewire itself in those early childhood years. Think about neuroscience. The brain is rewiring itself. The neurons in the brain rewire themselves. And from the ages of about 3 to 12, the human brain is constantly learning and making new connections with the brain. As we study the way the brain operates and the way the brain thinks, think about how much easier it is for children to learn 2 languages if they grow up in a bilingual household when they're young. Think about how hard it is for us to learn a new language if we didn't grow up learning the language. So the human brain rewires itself. And so this partnership around early childhood education actually takes us into the world of neuroscience. So the next subject that we're going to look at is around the opportunities to transform healthcare with cognitive systems. Understanding human behavior, understanding human thinking is the neuroscience aspect of that. Understanding how we drive new insights from the data gives us opportunity to rethink the way that we can deliver healthcare in the future. We can transform the way that we do genomics, but we can also transform the way that we do treatment of patients. A lot of medical informatics today is fundamentally text-based. We analyze structured data in databases, we analyze unstructured data. This could be doctors' written notes that we can analyze. We analyze all of the pathology data, we analyze the lab data. But systems today are getting much, much better at analyzing text data. But if you think about going to the physician, a lot of the time what's happening is this. You have a chest x-ray, you have an MRI, you have a PET scan, you may have a CT scan, you've got digital pathology work coming back. And it's not just at your personal physician. You go to the opticians, you go to the high street optical store, you're probably having a retinal scan done. The amount of data that is generated in the world of video and image data is enormous. Think back to that chart I had where we talked about data and how big it is, and the amount of video data that's coming from all different sources. We've been focused on how do we teach our cognitive systems, how do we teach Watson to see? So let's look at an example from our world of medical imaging.
More and more, data is visual. In fact, the number of MRIs has increased by 10% a year. And a radiologist might view 1,000 images to find one tiny abnormality in shape, contrast, or movement. Because it's so challenging, our research project is teaching IBM Watson to see. In the future, it could help clinicians spot key patterns quickly and precisely. IBM Watson is working to make healthcare smarter every day.
So reinventing healthcare. So why is this hard? You'd think it would be easy, right? We can look at a photograph, we can look at a medical image. Why is it hard to teach systems how to interpret visual data? The reason it's hard, and the reason it is driven by the world of algorithms and deep learning and machine learning, is that you have to go back to the fundamentals of cognitive systems. You have to learn, and you have to reason. So how do you learn? Imagine all of us, right? How would we learn from a set of radiology images or MRI images? We learn by experience. We learn by recognizing patterns. And we look for features within the data sets that enable us to validate, well, this was bad, this was good. This was bad, this was good. We learn. So the human brain learns. And the human brain, back to neuroscience, the human brain is really, really good at pattern recognition. So we need to teach our cognitive systems how to learn. And the way that you teach cognitive systems how to learn is by building training sets. So you build systems, you build convolutional neural networks that are modeled after the information that you can provide. And you teach, in this case, this is skin lesions for a research project that we've been doing in Melbourne and New York around identifying skin cancer for early prevention and early detection of melanoma. But what you have to do with these training patterns is you actually come back to the world of algorithms. You need to be able to teach the computer how to understand the shape and dimension of a lesion. You need to teach the computer how to recognize cancerous versus non-cancerous. You actually have to teach the computer some of the characteristics of the image to identify key features that a skilled dermatologist would know. So you're teaching a cognitive system to learn based on experience. That's the way the human being does it. We're teaching based on experience. And so the way you teach computers to become cognitive systems is you provide them with training sets. So this is an example of a training set of skin cancer lesions and non-cancerous lesions, so that we can develop the algorithms to be able to do the pattern recognition that will enable us to identify an at-risk lesion versus benign. This is a piece of work that we've been doing in collaboration with Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York and some local collaborators here in Australia and New Zealand. And it's an example of a research project that is pushing the boundaries of how do we interpret medical images and how do we do the algorithmic development to enable us to offload the work of the dermatologist or the clinician to be able to generate what we would call augmented intelligence into the hands of the clinicians. In this other example, we're looking at the predictive nature of skin cancer. So on this last example, I want to bring us back to the fundamental definitions of cognitive systems. Cognitive systems are about our ability to learn. So think about the human on the left here. The characteristics of the human and the human brain are around compassion and empathy, design, judgment, common sense, intuition. I mentioned pattern recognition already. But think about the things that we as humans are inherently good at, that we want to bring to the world of computing systems of the future. We want to take the human side of what we can do well in the way that we think about analyzing data, big data. We want to take this human world and we want to marry it with the world of the machine. The world of the machine, think about what the world of the machine is really good at. We can program the machines. We can do mathematics on the machines. We can do floating point calculations. We could do fact-checking with machines. We can implement deep learning algorithms on the machines. We can do machine learning. We're often asked, is cognitive computing the same as artificial intelligence? Well, it's augmented intelligence. It's accessible intelligence. It's not artificial or fake. It's real. It's augmented and accessible intelligence that as we bring the world of the machine and the world of the human back together, we end up with fundamentally different ways of thinking about how we can interpret big data, how we can drive new insights from data, and how we can fundamentally think about programmable systems of the future in a fundamentally different way. So when we put the two together, the world of the human, the world of the machine, oops, sorry, went the wrong way. The world of the human, the world of the machine, human plus machine together enables us truly to transform industries, to transform the way we think about big data and analytics, to transform the way that we can drive new insights into those data sets, and to make a difference in the way that we interact in the world today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna. We've got a couple of minutes for a couple of questions from the floor. Would anyone like to begin? How about starting with 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. All my peers already say they can't keep up now, so I don't think this stuff can come too quickly. Joanna, how soon, what is the practical application outside of health and education were the examples that you used, obviously also the Woodside one, but across all industries, how do you see cognitive computing having a practical application?
So let's talk about a couple of the industries we discussed earlier today. The airline industry with Qantas, I'm not sure if Luke is still in the audience, or the world of financial services and insurance. Video data, social media data are changing the way that we engage with our clients. They're changing the way that we engage with consumers. So in the world of financial services, what we're seeing is clients leveraging the social media data to drive new insights around their client set, potentially to give new ways of offering new products to clients because they're understanding and interacting with their clients in a fundamentally different way. So it's changing, the whole world of social media is changing the world of financial services and disrupting actually the way that we engage with individuals. Insurance is the same. Think about insurance from the perspective of life events. If you're tweeting on social media that your friend just had a baby, or that you just had a baby, or that you're getting married next week, or you're going on holiday next week, the information that we're generating as individuals is valuable data for the clients that we work with. And so those are very specific examples, particularly in the context of the social media data set and the video data set, that's really transforming the way we engage with clients.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Alex Zaharov-Royd from ITwire.com. You talk about man and machine, and clearly man and machine are already working very well together. We all have our smartphones, our Fitbits, our devices, all the things you were talking about there. But how long before we have a personal Watson implanted into our brains and we become cybernetic man and machine? I mean, that's the stuff of sci-fi nightmares, but it's also the potential stuff of sci-fi utopias.
So you talk about brain implantations. One of the medical technologies that Australia is probably world famous for is the Cochlear Implant, right? Think of that as an example of human plus machine, right? It's human ingenuity and design combined with implantation in the human brain to enable deaf people to hear. So that's actually not a new thought, right? This whole notion of augmenting the best of the human and the machine, clearly that's a journey we're already on. In the context of the medical example, the example of the babies in the intensive care unit, that's not implantation, but that's a data analytics example where if we can monitor data, if we can monitor the dynamics of the data that we as humans produce, then we can drive new insights with cognitive technologies. But the whole notion of implantation, remember Cochlear, it's not a new thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, Byron Conner from CIO Magazine here. Just an easy one for you. We're talking about skin cancer and cognitive computing and the work that you're doing with in Australia. Which cancer centres are participating in that?
So I can't name all of the collaborators publicly, but we are working with a number of leading institutions here in Australia. We've got an active research program in the Melbourne labs, and for those of you who'd like to come visit us, that we can certainly show you some of the work that we're doing around image analytics for melanoma.
Time for one last question for Joanna.
Hi, Raj here from Big Insights Research. There's a lot of talk, obviously, in your cognitive example. This is taking advanced analytics to the next stage. How do you find the skills required for this different from the data scientist that's been talked about over the last few years? Obviously, there's machine learning, deep learning, which is, typically outside the research institutes, not many people would be knowledgeable in that space.
That's a really good question. Clearly, machine learning and deep learning, you'll hear the buzz about that, right? New skill sets, new experiences. New open source technology is emerging very, very rapidly. So for the student of the future, think about back to the Deakin University example I mentioned, right? The student of the future needs to be equipped with the skill set that the cognitive era will require. And so that's also a transformation that we're seeing in curriculum development in higher education. And you'll see there are a number of different universities featured here at CeBIT. The skill sets that are required, clearly, fingers on the keyboard programming, that part's not new. But now we're into a different world of neural nets and the ability to design and create different neural models for the different domains that I'm in. So it's not, clearly it's a scientific approach and it's a data approach. But there are also new programming skills and techniques and languages that are needed as we enter the world. Even the world Rod Smith was talking about this morning about real-time, instant programming and the ability to transform in front of a client the way that we do rapid prototyping. So it's a very rapid advancement in skills acquisition as we enter the cognitive era, and you can see that with all of the universities that are out here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please thank Joanna for her presentation this afternoon?